Hello everyone. So I haven't done a video in a while, but I'll be doing a video now about sex work. Let me put a song on first, you know the deal. Right, so anyway, let me just do a quick sound check. Fucking hell. I swear I've got coronavirus. So sound check, sound check, sound check, sound check, sound check. Let's see if the sound's alright. It should be alright. Anyway, I'm getting loads of messages. Right, okay then, so I've spent a lot of time attacking Wignats. You know my thoughts on Wignats. It's my belief that Adolf Hitler and a lot of the NSA DP were just pseudo-socialists, like fake socialists that were just trying to desperately cling on to the capitalist system, desperately trying to cling on by attacking the Soviet Union. You know, it was a reaction to the Soviet Union. They weren't real socialists. They were fake socialists trying to keep the same system in place. But enough has been said on that. Now it's time to turn my attention to a lot of these fake socialists. They'll even call themselves communists, and I find their views abhorrent, pretty much. And it's you know, I can sympathise with a lot of Marxists, and I feel for them that people like Vaush misrepresent their entire worldview. So let's do that. Let's see what Vaush has got to say. And this is in response to recent news that wait. Fuck. This is in response to OnlyFans banning adult content, and I thought this was a really good idea. I think it's a great thing to ban adult content. I think it exploits men, women, and alike. And if you're a socialist, you should be against prostitution because it only exists because of capitalism. Turning one's own body into a commodity is disgusting. But let's see what Vaush has got to say.
OnlyFans to bar sexually explicit videos starting in October. That's a headline right there. And also, not good. You know, there are a lot of arguments that immediately come to mind in my head concerning the unviability of this approach, why it is destructive to sex workers, why it is generally anti-fun, and a number of other things.
Right, so as a socialist, we're not necessarily motivated by what's fun.
OnlyFans to bar sexually explicit videos starting in October. That's a headline right there. And also, not good. You know, there are a lot of arguments that immediately come to mind in my head concerning the unviability of this approach, why it is destructive to sex.
We are back. So where were we? Essentially said it's not good. And the problem he's got is that he doesn't understand what a lumpen proletariat is. So there are many ways. Oh shit, wrong one. There are many types of jobs that exist that are exploitative and cause a lot of harm to society. An example would be working for the makeup industry, or being involved in advertising or marketing. Now these jobs, the makeup industry for example, a lot of people in the makeup industry, they earn their living by preying on women's insecurities, by making your wife, your daughter, your friends, perhaps your comrades, by making them feel insecure about themselves. And they exploit them by selling them a commodity they don't want, by making them feel insecure about themselves. There are all sorts of jobs like that. There's been a drug dealer. You could be a heroin dealer. You could be a person who produces heroin. You know. Now, producing heroin, producing that commodity, is bad for your society, and that exploits the vulnerable as well. You can be a slave owner. That was exploitative as well. Yeah, so just because it's a job doesn't mean it's a job that we should encourage. Prostitution is a form of employment or a job that exploits men, creates an environment where encourages men to devalue women, to devalue relationships, to have their relationships based purely on sex instead of love and companionship. It's also not very productive for the nation, in the sense that women could be doing other things that are productive for the collective. You know, every prostitute that exists is a person who is not helping children in orphanages, or doing real work that our country, or our collective values. You know, there's lots of different types of jobs, not capitalist jobs. You don't have to be a capitalist to exploit people. You can be unproductive or exploiting people even if you're not a capitalist. You can be a drug dealer, a fucking prostitute, whatever. And the point is with prostitution is that prostitution, every woman who is engaging in prostitution is a woman who could be, like I said, working in an orphanage, being a nurse, being a doctor, being a teacher. And they should value their body more than that, and value their thing. And we have to also accept that a lot of people are prostitutes because they're victims of exploitation and victims of capitalism. They exist as prostitutes 99% of the time, not because they chose to be a prostitute. but because they were kind of compelled to be a prostitute. You know, they were...
Sex workers, why it is generally anti-fun, and a number of other things. Lots of fun stuff like that. Now, there's a superficial reading of this, which is as follows. That OnlyFans did this because they just want to get investor money, and investors are scared off by pornography. That is the immediate reading as I understand it. And I'm sure there is an element to that, because historically investors have always been very scared off by anything having anything to do with sex, which is unfortunate and deeply puritanical. Obviously, sex work is work. It is, in fact, the world's oldest profession. Our obsession with...
Saying something is the world's oldest profession doesn't make it more valid. There are lots of, professions that have existed for fucking millennia. Like I've said, drug dealers, people who have been making drugs for fucking millennia. People have been cultivating heroin for millennia. People have been engaging in slavery for millennia. People have been engaging in all sorts of unproductive jobs that have a lot of societal damage, that cause unproductive lifestyles. So just because it's existed for a very long time doesn't mean that we shouldn't stop it. We should stop it. It devalues women. It creates a society where men devalue women as well, and it encourages this capitalist system where women turn themselves into a commodity, where they sell themselves as a commodity. And I don't think that individuals should be selling themselves as commodities. That's what slavery is, and it's a kind of soft slavery for women. Like a lot of women who have been victims of abuse, very vulnerable women, they're not necessarily forced to become prostitutes or have OnlyFans, but they're kind of conditioned to do that, and it's bad. We should stop that. We should stop that from happening. We don't want a society where women are coerced into selling their bodies or selling themselves as a commodity. We also don't want to encourage it, because it creates a society where it also preys on vulnerable men. There's a lot of men out there who struggle to find a partner, and instead of improving themselves as a human being to find a partner, instead of us helping them to find a partner, we create a market where we exploit women so that they can have sex with them, and sort of satisfy that pseudo need. And it's bad. It's bad. I think it's bad.
Criminalizing sex work in all of its forms has always been part of an ongoing moral outrage, largely associated with Christian puritanical moralism, and also the attempt to control women, because most...
Well, it's not just Christians who've always talked about this. Like I've said, it's not just Christians. Marxists, like Vaush calls himself a Marxist, but Marxists have historically been against prostitution. I'll just get a few quotes on the screen. Wait there, man. Where are we? You've already seen the... I think we should put... so we'll, let's just be fair here, because I was going to call him Marx then. He isn't Marx. He seems to believe that he's a socialist, and when he gets through... hopefully you can see that. Can I zoom in? How do I zoom in? Ooh, whoa, fuck. Well, that's better. Actually, I can just do that. Right, so let's read what they've got to say. So Marx says, in Capital Volume 1, on what foundation is the present family, the bourgeois family, based on? On capital or on private gain? In its completely developed form, the family exists only amongst the bourgeoisie, but the state of things finds it complement in the practical absence of family amongst the proletarians, and in public prostitutions. So Marx is pretty much talking about the fact that a lot of poor people and vulnerable people are sort of compelled to become prostitutes. A lot of women think that low of themselves that they believe that the only way that they can survive in the capitalist system is by selling their body or turning themselves into a commodity, and that's something that needs to stop. Right there, man. Friedrich Engels says, with the rise of inequality of property, already at the upper stage of barbarism, therefore, wage labour appears sporadically side by side with slave labour, and at the same time as its necessary correlate, the professional prostitution of free women side by side with the forced surrender of the slave. Yeah, exactly. It is self-evident that the abolition of the present system of production must bring with it the abolition of community of women springing from that system, i.e. of prostitution, both public and private. This is a common argument. Yeah, the sees a means of reproduction. It's like a lot of people say that Marx was anti-family. Now, Marx wasn't anti-family. Marx was against this kind of prostitution that exists in capitalism, where a lot of women are forced to kind of coerced because of the system that they live in, to pick a partner based on how much money he earns. That's a kind of prostitution. And also just straight up prostitution. They're forced to sell their body. Socialism, real socialism, wants to abolish prostitution because prostitution is exploiting the most vulnerable people in our society. Mainly women. Like, a lot of women are vulnerable, and it also exploits like vulnerable men. Like, we have a lot of incels in our current system. We have a lot of young boys who use OnlyFans and things like that, and because they're sexually inexperienced, they end up getting exploited because these women feed on their biological desire to reproduce, and they end up spending a lot of money when they shouldn't really be doing that. It's a kind of exploitation. It's manipulation to the highest extent. Alexander Koloniti: prostitution destroys the equality, solidarity, and comradeship of the two halves of the working class. A man who buys the favours of a woman does not see her as a comrade or as a person with equal rights. The contempt he has for the prostitute whose favours he has brought affects his attitude to all women. And that's true. It kind of breeds this attitude where men just view women as just being a piece of meat that they should fuck, and that's something we want to get rid of. Like, I believe in traditional gender roles and things like that. I think that the highest form that a woman can attain to is being a wife and a mother, and we shouldn't be looking at women as just like a piece of meat that's only there to fuck and you can buy, and she should sell her. It's disgusting. Anyway, let's see what Lenin has got to say. So long as wage slavery exists, inevitably prostitution too will exist. All the oppressed and exploited classes throughout history of the human societies have always been forced to give up to their oppressors first, their unpaid labour, and second, the women as concubines for their masters. And this is what exists with prostitution. Like, women are forced to, coerced and forced to see themselves as a commodity and sell their bodies to the capitalist system, and that needs to stop. It needs to stop. Real socialists are against this. Fuck prostitution. That's stupid. Let's see what he's got to say anyway.
No sex workers are women, and that's not good. And in fact, that's actually extremely bad. And that does not change here. However, there is more context to this. OnlyFans' message, the message that they released, seems to be a little bit inconsistent with regards.
My point is, I want to eliminate all forms of exploitation. So if there's a kind of job that exists that exploits people or exploits the nation, I'm against that as well. So an example would be, I'm against the working class who produce heroin. An example would be, let's say you're an opium farmer. Let's say you make heroin. You make heroin and sell heroin. I'm against that. That has a lot of negative effects on society and feeds on the most vulnerable people in our society. And also, it creates like an epidemic. I'm against the beauty industry. I believe that companies like what they call now Maybelline and people like that. These people literally make a living by targeting women and feeding on their insecurities, making them feel insecure so that they can sell them a commodity, and that's a form of exploitation. It needs to stop. Just like prostitution, I'm against prostitution because 90% of prostitutes, they're only prostitutes or porn stars or whatever because they're very vulnerable women and believe that they can only succeed in this capitalist system by selling their body and devaluing who they are as a human being instead of trying to build themselves up. We shouldn't do that at all. It's also the case that it encourages men to devalue women as well and to see them only as a commodity. And also feeds on a lot of male insecurity. There's a lot of men who exist in the world currently who are struggling to find a partner, and this feeds on their insecurity and their depression. And these prostitutions are selling them a pseudo replacement of a relationship, whereas we shouldn't do that. We should be actively encouraging men instead of wasting their time spending money on prostitutes. They should be trying to improve themselves so they can hopefully find a partner and a wife and be happy, really happy and fulfilled, and being productive people, being very productive people. And the same occurs for women as well. Every woman who is a prostitute is a woman who is not working in an orphanage or being a teacher or being a doctor, or there's many things that women can do, and when they waste their lives dedicated to selling their body as a commodity, it's very unproductive for society, very unproductive indeed.
As to what exactly they plan on doing. Namely, information that's explicit in their TOS and that has been provided to creators is not the same as what has been provided to reporters. There is the possibility of a communications mix-up here, which is a little bit unfortunate. It seems like OnlyFans is privately reassuring people that they're not going to outright ban all forms of sexual content, but there are other sources which claim that they have the intention to do so, at least to move away from it. Yeah, here's the message that was sent to creators. Thank you for your inquiry. Please be advised our website will continue and will always allow explicit content. We are releasing an app on Apple and Android Store in October 2021. The rules and regulations for the App Store do not allow not safe for work content to be sold. Due to this, the app being released will be safe for work and will not allow explicit content to...
That's a great idea because I understand where they're going with this. Like they want their app to be on Google Play Store and whatever, and obviously a lot of children use Google Play and things like that. And it's obviously very bad for children to be exposed to pornography and things like that, especially young boys, because when young boys are exposed to pornography, they inevitably start to devalue women. They just see them as a piece of meat, whereas you shouldn't really see your partner as that. You should see the woman you spend your life, the rest of your life with, as someone you love and care for. It's not just a piece of meat that you put your dick in. It's something more than that. And yeah.
To stay within their regulations. This will not affect those continuing to utilize the site as they normally do on browsers/desktops, nor will this ever change. Please let me know if you have any further questions. We greatly appreciate you reaching out. So, this ties into the contents of this Twitter thread, if you'd like to take a look at it. A lot of people are getting the OnlyFans story wrong, and the reality of it is much more damaging and concerning to both the livelihood of sex workers and online freedom in general. OnlyFans isn't ditching porn and sex workers because it's trying to get new investments. It's ditching them because on October 1st of 2021, MasterCard is implementing new rules governing sites with adult content that use their payment processing systems. So what I have heard, as I understand it, is that since MasterCard is integrated with the App Store, that means anything put on the App Store has to comply with MasterCard's rules regarding the distribution of content. These rules basically require that OnlyFans and every other site that accepts MasterCard payments will not only fully verify every user and every person who appears in every adult video, which seems pretty difficult to do for an amateur porn site, but review all posted content before publication, including real-time review of live streams. Now, this seems so wild to me that I would need some kind of source on this claim specifically, because I've seen other claims verified elsewhere. This, to me, this little nub at the end, real-time review of live streams, seems a little bit wacky. There's a lot of information being sent out in a lot of directions. I think what's ultimately happening is this. Right now, we're experiencing a modern revival of old and long-standing arguments used against sex workers for morally puritanical reasons. Do you guys remember the changes that were made to, for example, Patreon? Remember how Patreon used to be the hub for sex workers to produce content, but then it became much harder for them to do so because a Trump-era law passed, Tumblr as well. There's been a huge crackdown on the ability for websites to meaningfully host pro-sex work content.
And that's because of the negative effects that it's been having on society. You know, a lot of young boys, you know, teenage boys and teenage girls for that matter, are exposed to a lot of hardcore pornography, and this is obviously not good for them because it sort of encourages them to not value relationships properly. It can affect their chances of getting a relationship as well. Not only that, but I'm assuming a lot of these companies don't want to be associated with you know, sex trafficking and victims of exploitation. You know, like I've said, there are a lot of women out there. 90% of women who are involved in the sex industry are victims of exploitation, either being directly sex trafficked, or they're just really vulnerable women who are victims of abuse, drug addiction, have had a poor upbringing and stuff, and they don't really want to be associated with that, and it makes sense, you know. And it's something that should happen. We should we should always, you know, I fully, I understand why companies like MasterCard would, I understand why companies like MasterCard, but not only that, like any socialist should be in favour of this. We should make sure that, you know, that this kind of filth isn't online, for the reasons that I've talked about before, but also because each individual stream, you don't know if that woman is a victim of exploitation or not. She could have been a victim of sex trafficking, or, you know, just a really vulnerable drug addict or something, and it's not something we should actively encourage in society. I don't want to live in a society where we're encouraging the exploitation of vulnerable women to sell their bodies as commodities, to either fund a drug addiction or to sort of give them a financial income because society sort of neglected them, or their own families neglected them. So yeah, it's also the case that I do want to regulate the internet in regards to explicit content, because I do believe that we need to crack down on not only like vulnerable women and vulnerable men, but also vulnerable children. We need to ensure that the internet is completely free of paedophilia and sexual exploitation of children. That needs to stop immediately. Yeah, it does.
Now, to a degree, I am sympathetic with some of these calls for more scrutiny. Because, say, take Pornhub. Pornhub had this huge purge where they deleted like 1 billion videos that were produced by anyone who wasn't a registered producer of videos. Now, the only porn videos on Pornhub come from people who have gone through the verification process. Now, there are good and bad things about this. On one hand, you can, you know, it's cool to put amateur porn out there, I don't know. On the other hand, the fact that you could just post whatever you wanted meant there was a lot of child sexual abuse material on that website, which is really bad. So this is a give and take kind of thing. If you want to keep...
All pornography is bad. Like, none of it's good. Like, even if it's two consenting adults making pornography, the fact that they're putting their content available online can encourage, you know, vulnerable men and vulnerable women to see this as a replacement for improving themselves. Instead of improving themselves and finding a partner, they engage in this behavior where they devalue other human beings by seeing them as seeing sex as only as being a recreational activity, where sex should be a form of bonding, you know, that we're between two people who love each other, like a man and a woman who love each other and want to, you know, going to be productive citizens for our nation and our collective.
The truly despicable material off these websites, you have to crack down on them in a way which will also curtail the distribution of legitimate media. And let me be clear, amateur anal fisting videos uploaded by two consenting people are defensible and worthwhile artistic content worth preserving. Are they worth preserving so much that defending them means you shouldn't nuke a site to get rid of child sex abuse materials? Well, that's honestly a difficult question, because
It's not a difficult question. It's not a difficult question at all. Like, if you're gonna regulate, it's a simple question. It's like, do you want to regulate the internet so child porn never exists again? A side effect of this is that it'll be very difficult for degenerates to put up their fisting videos. Yeah, I have no I have no problem with that whatsoever. I don't, it should be very difficult to obtain pornography online for this reason. Not only because it exploits children, but also exploits women, vulnerable men, vulnerable women, vulnerable men who are consuming the pornography, and it's bad all around. So stop it. Stop all pornography, as far as I'm concerned.
The purge of entire mediums to protect the children has been a long-standing tactic of censors looking to invade people's privacy and implement draconian oversight. An example of that would be, was it Google or Apple? It was Apple, right? Their recent attempt to push through an update that would auto-scan all photos on your phone and report them to the cops if there's child sexual abuse material. Now, if there's child sexual abuse material on your phone, yeah, I want the cops knowing about that. But that's one step away from them looking for other stuff on your phone. If they implement the technology to do one thing, they have the technology to do the other things.
They do have the technology to do other things, but ultimately this technology is a force for good. At the end of the day, so his argument is, yes, it's a good thing that Google and Microsoft and our own government have got systems in place to sort of scan people's phones and devices to ensure that they haven't got child pornography. Fantastic. And he's saying, but they could use that technology for other means. The fact is, they're going to use that technology for other means anyway. So you shouldn't be banning that technology. That technology is necessary. It's a good thing. Now, we should put regulations in place to ensure that they're not using that technology for other things, but that technology should exist definitely to sort of eliminate any form of sexual exploitation online, be that from prostitutes, like vulnerable women who are victims of drug addiction or victims of like I've said, majority of pornography, it comes from the women involved are women who have been who are victims of exploitation to a certain degree. They might have been victims of sexual abuse as children, drug addiction, poor family upbringing. They also devalue themselves, and at the end of the day, it's all exploitation. So it all needs to stop. It all needs to stop, and I'm perfectly okay with the state fucking scanning people's phones to make sure that they're not nonces. That's a fantastic thing. Hopefully they do that more often.
It's the same argument with, like, the Patriot Act, Like, we need to tap everyone's phones to know if anyone's doing anything illegal. Well, you know how these arguments spiral. Not to mention false positives, true, and how effective or reliable these systems would be. This is an incredibly complicated subject, and the need to balance, like, our fundamental First Amendment rights and the need to fight back against abusive material online are both things that are worthwhile and should be fought for, and the discussion...
As Damien said, I agree that monitoring is good. If you're a good, honest citizen, you shouldn't be worried. Exactly, you shouldn't be worried. Now, obviously, there's an argument that they could be going too far. They're going to go too far anyway. They're monitoring you anyway. If they are monitoring you anyway, you should at least say, if you're going to be creating a fucking police state, then you at bare minimum, you should be fucking clamping down on sexual exploitation of children, women, and men. All pornography pretty much and prostitution. But it's also the case that if there was no, like, we know what's happened with the internet because of the internet, because there's been no regulation on the internet. People have had pretty much absolute freedom on the internet. There's been an epidemic of exploitation of children, young girls, young boys, men, women, and it's created the society we live in now, where we've got an incel epidemic. We've got women who are devaluing their own bodies. We've got paedophilia all over the place. We've got paedophiles grooming children right now all over the internet, and it needs to stop. And that's why the state necessarily needs to intervene and regulate the shit out of that. Of course. I don't really buy the argument of, this is a slippery slope into a police state. Bring the fucking police state on. I can't wait to have a police state. It'd be amazing.
On that subject, and the intersection between these problems is always going to be, like, fraught with a whole bunch of moralizing and very little nuanced discussion, which is unfortunate, and that's not the conversation that I'm meaning to have here, because we are talking about OnlyFans. OnlyFans claims, when speaking with these folks, that this is only a restriction that they are putting forth on the App Store because they have to comply with certain regulations. The problem with that is that this is kind of step one in a process that we all know is going to happen, okay? It's like Twitter. Imagine if they banned porn on the Twitter app, but allowed it on the Twitter website. I want you to imagine what kind of weird...
Pornography should not be on... I'm just going to fucking say it right now. Pornography should not be easily accessible at all. Like, the reality is that if it's easily accessible for you as an adult, then it's easily accessible for children, very young children as well. The reality is, if you've got a child, they're only a few clicks away from fucking full-on hardcore porn, and that could completely fucking... and that's abuse, pretty much. That's what, you know. So yeah, pornography should not be on Twitter. It should not be on any fucking website at all, really. I'm going to be honest with you. Pornography should be completely fucking removed from the internet. The same goes for prostitution or any of that shit. We should be living in a society where both men and women, they're not entirely motivated by fucking commies. You know what I mean? The way, you know, obviously sex is good and fun, and it's a good recreational activity. Don't get me wrong, I like sex, but it should be, you know, ultimately we want to create optimal human beings where the way that they get sex is by finding a partner, a person they can share their life with, who they love and you know, and they're friends with. It shouldn't be this sort of animalistic, reductive thing where we reduce human relationships to just wanking over a computer screen or finding a prostitute. It's just it devalues women, it devalues men, and it's not productive. It's not a productive form of employment. Like I've said before, there are many forms of work that a human being can do that have got negative effects on society, or they're simply not productive. They're not productive at all. You know, if we're going to have a socialist state, if we are going to have a socialist state, then we need to make sure that we're self-reliant. Like we are an autarky, pretty much. Because when we have to rely on other nations, then we have to exploit them to a certain degree. Even if we have to rely on immigration, for example, this results in brain drain that causes exploitation in the third world. I want to create a nation that's as self-reliant as possible. And the way that I look at the way that I look at England, there are many people who are wasting their time. They're wasting a lot of their time when they could be doing forms of work or forms of community work that would benefit the nation, you know, in a better way. An example would be, I've said this already in the video. If you're a fucking there, man. If you're a woman and you spend your time selling your body as a commodity, I mean, you could do that, but it'd be better well spent if you spent your time working in an orphanage or seeking to improve yourself, your education, or spending your time helping your community in more productive ways. Like, you know, we have a shortage in care workers. We have a shortage in people who are fostering and adopting. We have a low fertility rate. We have lots of other things that people should be doing with their time rather than selling their body as a commodity, creating this epidemic of incels and you know, essentially preying on very, very vulnerable men. Like, if you're a female prostitute, you're essentially exploiting like very vulnerable men who, for whatever reason, can't get access to a partner, and you're exploiting them in exchange for cash. That's what you're doing. You're exploiting them. And there's this idea that they consent. They don't consent. They're you know, victims of the material conditions where, for whatever reason, they struggle to find a partner, and you're preying on that in exchange for fucking money. It's exploitation, simply put. You're just as bad as a fucking capitalist, pretty much. Just as bad. Just as bad as Jeff Bezos, to be honest. Gulag. Straight fucking gulag. If you're a prostitute, fuck off to gulag immediately.
Partitioning that would lead to, and how much that would damage people who do, say, not safe for work furry art commissions on Twitter. Most people browse Twitter through the app, so you are functionally cutting down on a huge proportion of people who would otherwise be interested in the not safe for work content, or for
And you'll notice that he's brushing over like the main reason why these big companies are. Listen, I'm not. You know damn well I'm not a capitalist. I'm not a fucking capitalist, but I understand why they're fucking doing this. Increasingly, there's a lot of children, young children, who use Twitter, Facebook. They may even go on OnlyFans. They may stumble on OnlyFans, get dad's credit card or whatever, and they will be consuming adult content. And a lot of these companies don't want to be associated with facilitating young children viewing this content, because it's bad. If you're a parent and you catch your child on Twitter and they're fucking watching gangbangs or whatever, you're going to be fucking pissed off. Now, people will make the argument, oh, it's up to the parents. Now, it's not always. Not everyone has got a good parent. Not everyone has got a decent parent who's going to monitor their child's internet fucking activity. I do that. But I understand that not everyone's got a good parent, you know. I actually don't believe that it should be entirely down to the parent to raise children as well. I believe that, you know, as a socialist, as a fucking socialist, a national socialist, not cringe wignat national socialist, but a real national socialist, I believe that the nation, we should all be collectively interested in raising children and protecting children and protecting vulnerable people in our nation, the homeless, the war veterans, the children, you know, vulnerable women who might want to, you know, force themselves into selling their bodies as commodity. I'm against all of that. I want to raise, you know, I think we should collectively you know, make an effort to ensure that children are safe. Children are safe. Just want children to be safe. And you shouldn't be putting pornography on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever, because children can consume that, and it can be damaging for them, very damaging.
For any gamers in the audience, you know how PC and Xbox players can't do cross-app game playing sometimes? Yeah, it sucks, doesn't it? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. There is a broader effort here to make sex work difficult to monetize online that is extremely problematic. And I think it speaks quite a bit to OnlyFans' lack of corporate integrity, that they're willing to build a platform known for sex work and then turn their back on sex workers in a move to sort of expand their measures here. I would not at all be surprised if OnlyFans takes further steps.
You'll notice how the next video on the right hand side is called "The Rate of Male Virginity is Skyrocketing." Now, it's my belief that pornography is helping towards. In fact, fuck it, let's do this. Shall I do it now? Yeah, I'll do it. Where are we? Where is it called now? Oh, here we go. Right, so we'll look at another negative effect of pornography. Wait there, man. So this is from BBC. You can call it the British Bolshevik Party, whatever. Let's read what they've said. Are young men really having less sex? Following a US study, it's been suggested that housing, video games, and Netflix might be to blame. Sex. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me. Sex, as the old saying goes, sex, as the old saying goes, sells, and there's no shortage of reports about how modern society is interacting with things like porn, virginity, and casual hookups. And one study is suggesting that a major shift might be underway in the world of sex, at least for young American men. Survey results from the National Opinion Research Center at the Washington University of Chicago, which has been interpreted and analysed by the Washington Post, suggests that fewer young men in the US are having sex than in the past. The General Social Survey, which interviewed thousands of people, has been conducted since 1972, revealed that 23% of adults said that they hadn't had sex in the past year, doubling in the past 10 years, and that are much larger than that as number is expected than were men. The first survey shows that the share of men under 30 who said they hadn't had sex in the past year has tripled since 2008 to 28%, much higher than the 8% increase amongst women the same age. So this is the data. Zoom in a bit. There we go. That's the data, Luke. So you can see, and it's no weird. It's no weird. It's no weird coincidence that the rise of the internet as a result of this, or the access to pornography, how easy it is to access pornography, has caused this to happen. If you look at this data, you'll see that in 2008, we're talking. So this is young men. So it says share of men and women between the ages of 18 and 30 reporting no sex in the past year, and that's obviously a bad thing, right? Like I've said, I want human beings to be happy. I want them to be productive. I want them in functional relationships where they're, living a good life. As a socialist, as a national socialist, I want all Englishmen and all English women to have a decent life. I want them to have a nice house. I want them to have a nice garden. I want them to have a couple of kids. I want them to have a wife. I want them to have a good job. I want them to have meaning in their life. I want them to be very productive people. I don't want them stuck online all day masturbating to OnlyFans. I don't want that at all. And if you look at this data, in 1989 it was 15%. It went down 1998. About 1996. It's been like that. And if we look at now from 2008 to 2018, it's rapidly increased. We've got a lot of men who are not even having sex. It's a bad thing. Look at this. The data obtained from face-to-face interviews also found that more than half of US adults, that's all adults, between the ages of 18 and 34, so that's 51%, don't have a long-term partner. A figure that's risen from 33% in 2004. So that's quite a significant rise. So we've got more people who, both men and women, who are struggling to find a partner. So it says here, so what should we make of this data, and can we draw parallels with the UK? Professor Simon Forrest from the Institute of Health and Society at Newcastle University tells BBC Three that although the US study is robust and built on a big data set, the current UK research doesn't necessarily point to a similar trend over here. I'm not sure that we would claim that we could see the same sort of trend in the UK yet, at least according to the long-term natal surveys, which were carried out every decade or so, he says. But we're due another survey in 2020. Datamate. Page not found. Fuck you. Well, let's get to this though. Where is it? Finally, he points to what he calls the pornographization of society, in which the greater access to explicit pornography online might be affecting sexual relationships. For example, young people might be concerned about the objectification of their bodies, about increasing negative attitudes towards women, and they might even be having fewer sexual encounters because they're spending more time with pornography. In fact, a recent BBC Three survey for the series Porn Laid Bare, which asked more than 1,000 people online in Great Britain aged 18 to 25 about their relationship to pornography, revealed 55% of men said porn had been their main source of sex education. So there, So, this is the problem. It's a massive problem. So, when women engage in prostitution, when they become prostitutes, or they sell their body, or objectify themselves, there's a lot of negative consequences that can occur because of this. We have a lot of lonely people who are struggling to find a partner. They spend more time watching pornography rather than finding a relationship. So it's a very negative thing for society. But anyway, I'll shut the fuck up.
In the future. to remove sexually explicit content on all forms of on their website, not just their app, because they want investor money or because they are just broadly trying to rebrand. And many sex workers are moving to other platforms, such as, I don't know what they are. I don't know. But I'm sure people will use their names more often as an alternative to OnlyFans. The attack on sex work broadly is not only destructive to the lives of people who are doing good, honest-to-God jobs, it's also ineffective at dealing with the social problems that many moral Puritans claim it is. To be clear, banning this stuff online, like OnlyFans on the App Store, is not going to cut down on sex trafficking or child sex abuse in the real world at all. It won't. I promise you. Those systems are more complicated and they require much more in-depth and significant address. Income inequality is the big one, by the way. From which economic group do you think children are most often kidnapped for sex trafficking? It's not wealthy people. Also, with regards to people who entered the sex trade under less than consensual circumstances, do you think it's rich people? No, it's poverty and inequality that breed the conditions that lead to these sorts of problems. If you want to cut back on child sexual abuse, you know what the first thing you should push for is? That's right, the Me Too movement. Yes! Any social push to legitimize claims of sexual abuse will lead to more people feeling comfortable coming out about their abuse, whether they're adults or children. Because kids watch when you talk down.
Do you know what else would stop sexual exploitation? If you de-incentivize women and men to commodify their bodies. Like, we should live in a society where women feel disgusted about selling their body, turning themselves into a commodity. That's what slavery is. Like, slavery, when the blacks were enslaved, they were commodities. They were fucking commodities, pretty much. That's what black people were. They were commodities. And you're doing the same for women. You're saying, listen, ladies, if you want to earn money, if you want to be valued by society, then maybe you should earn a lot of money by selling your body online. Or, you're also saying to men, oh, what, you struggle in finding a partner? Well, what we'll do instead is we'll provide you images of women who don't value themselves very highly, and this will be your main source of sexual education, and we're not going to help you in any way. In fact, we're going to blame you for the problems that you're facing, yeah, and we're not going to we're going to create this culture where we exploit women, where we prey on their insecurities, their image, and we're going to quote, that's what you're fucking doing, man, that's what you're doing.
Victims of sexual abuse. If you've got an 11-year-old daughter who's being victimized by an uncle, and they see you watching Fox News talking about how Ford was a lying bitch when slandering Kavanaugh, they're not going to talk to you about it because they anticipate what you're going to say to them. Get rid of child marriage laws. Implement proper sex education. One of the easiest ways that child sexual abuse.
I agree, we should have proper fucking sex education, but it's incredibly difficult to have sex education in society if children are being bombarded with, moving images of adults fucking having sex and devaluing each other. Well, let's face it, when you watch pornography, it's not two people in a loving relationship who love each other. Generally speaking, it's two people fucking the shit out of each other, skull fucking each other, and degrading each other. That's what it is. And children learn from that, and that's how they go into relationships in the future, and they become very unhappy. There's a lot of men out there who can't find a partner because their only source of education in regards to finding a mate is pornography, mainly because you bombard them with moving images of this shit 24/7, and it needs to fucking stop.
Users take advantage of children is through their ignorance. If children don't know what sex is or what sexual abuse is, it's much easier for them to frame it in a way that it keeps the child ignorant to what is actually taking place. These are all practical, immediate, real-world things that we could do right now to cut down on the amount of sexual abuse of people, of children, and rape and sex trafficking and everything. We could do it right now. It would only make things better for people. These are ubiquitously positive.
We could also, we could also fucking stop pornography as a business, as a whole, and make it a criminal offence, and also say to women, you don't need to sell your body. You don't need to turn yourself into a commodity to be valued in this society. We value you, and you can earn a decent living, right? You can earn a decent living by being a productive member of our society. This is a socialist nation, and we value you as mothers, wives, and there's plenty of work you can do that our society values where you don't need to commodify your body. And when you do commodify your body, you cause a lot of societal problems without realising. You shouldn't be in it. Women should never be in a position where they have to sell their body to make a living, or they should never be encouraged to do so. We shouldn't be encouraging them to do so, because, like I've said, the reason why there's a demand for pornography, the reason why there's a demand for pornography and OnlyFans and things like that, is because we've got a lot of men who struggle because of a lack of a sexual education and a lack of socialisation to find a partner. These men are vulnerable people. They are vulnerable people, and instead of helping them out to find a partner and turn them into productive citizens, you do nothing. You encourage this to happen. You encourage this to happen by allowing this to continue, and it shouldn't continue. We should say pornography is no longer accessible. All of this shit is no longer accessible. If you want to find a partner, we're going to do our best to find you a partner by improving you as an individual, as a human being, and caring for you. And it'll be like North Korea. You don't have pornography in North Korea. You don't have fucking prostitution in North Korea. You know, women and men find partners. You're not helping them find partners.
Reforms that we could implement. And decriminalizing sex work, by the way, because a lot of child sex trafficking victims know they can't go to police because they'll be arrested or deported, which also ties into our immigration system. You understand? There are so many interlocking systems of inequality that people take advantage of, and they're all things that left-leaning people fight against. So if you actually care about the children, the solution is not technocratic overlord Apple fucking spying on your phone photos, or like attacking credit card companies for allowing sex work to be funneled through their... These are not the solutions, okay? Real systemic inequality is the real problem at hand here. And everything else has just been a fairly convenient...
He's kind of right. There's a degree of truth there, you know. Like, I believe the way that you deal with this problem, like I said, the way that you deal with this problem is by creating a society, where women value themselves highly. You know, women don't see themselves as a commodity. They don't devalue themselves. You know, we don't. You know, we should have a society where men and women are not only interested in just getting their dick wet. They should be looking for. They should have higher ideals. They should be more focused on finding a partner, finding someone they love and can spend their life with, and have children with. And we should also make it the case that we don't have a lot of vulnerable women. Like, we shouldn't have women who are, you know, addicted to, well, you know, drugs and stuff, or have poor upbringing and stuff. So there's a lot of things we can do to ensure that, you know, a lot of children have a good upbringing where they don't feel the need to sell themselves, you know, as a commodity. You know, that shouldn't happen, you know. I'm going to shut the fuck up now.
Convenient way of attacking sex workers for moralized reasons. Does anyone disagree with this? You do realize that OnlyFans removing porn is the same as Twitter removing right-wingers when it comes to corporations' terms and services? First of all, no, it isn't. The reason Twitter has TOS with regards to political behavior is to make the site more tolerable to the people who use it, not because they're trying to conform to application store rules or a credit card company rules. So you're categorically incorrect. And also, the validity of a TOS implementation is still something that could be questioned. I think banning like far-right hate speech on Twitter is defensible. I don't think it's defensible to ban sex workers from the sex work platform. This is like saying all laws are the same.
So like Vaush would prefer it be the case that there's no racists on Twitter, but he's quite okay with allowing people to post pornography on Twitter, and he is aware that children use Twitter. There are a lot of children. There are a lot of children that exist right now who are on Twitter, who are on porno sites, all sorts of stuff like that, and they perhaps shouldn't be on there. Because it gives them a warped understanding of what human relationships are like. And he will do this because he's a materialist who reduces human relationships to just cooming. And it's not human. It's not human to do that. Like, human beings are not just... We're not just fucking animals that fuck each other. We're not just that. We want to create strong societies and strong relationships. And like I've said, I want every human being, I want every fucking person in England to be, in a good relationship. That'd be good. I'd love a country where every man and woman has found their partner, they love each other, they have a couple of children, they have a nice house, a good job, they're, not victims of exploitation, and, free from addiction and things like that. That's how I want all human beings to be in England. It'd be a good place. That's the ideal we're moving towards. And you're not moving towards that ideal. You're encouraging a section of the economy that's exploitative, which exploits vulnerable men like the consumer, because they're insecure or whatever and they can't find a partner. It also exploits young girls who believe that this is a viable way of earning a living and it's somehow noble and productive, and it's not productive. It's not productive in any way. Like, being a prostitute or being a porno star is not productive in any way. That person who is engaging in pornography could be doing more productive things for the nation. They could be, working in a care home, helping deal with drug addictions in our community, helping us help out old people, working in foster homes and care homes, adopting children. There's lots of things that we can do in our nation that we have a shortage in labour. We have a shortage in labour that are more productive. Like I've said, the reality is that if we are going to have a socialist nation in England, we're going to have a shortage of labour. And if we are going to have a shortage of labour, that means that every individual who has the capability of working needs to be put into a section of the economy that's productive, not some unproductive job. You know what I mean? Like I've said, it's not just prostitution, it's also drug dealing, the manufacturing of drugs, advertising. There's certain people who work in advertising and marketing that exploit people and not productive. There's many jobs that are not productive for the security of our nation, our socialist state, and that's why they need to be moved into different areas of the economy. So if you're a woman and you're selling your body, you're wasting your fucking time and you're causing more damage to our nation, and you could be doing other things. You could be, like I say, working in an orphanage, helping old people, working for charity shops, doing charity work, things like this. More productive stuff. You could be a mother, you could help raise children. Be a great thing for you to do, and we value that more than this unnecessary bullshit.
Like, you have to make a case for them. I think they meant with respect to owners being able to moderate their platforms as they see fit. Wait, am I advocating for a legal ban on OnlyFans doing this? Because that's what far-right people do. Far-right people literally want to ban Twitter's ability to ban them on Twitter. I'm not saying that the government should step in and prevent OnlyFans from making this decision. So, it's not really comparable. I'm protesting their decision, which is everyone's right.
Someone said, that doesn't pay though, does it? It should pay. I believe people should be paid for that work, or at least valued for that. They should be paid for
that. Would you mind shouting out those alternative platforms again, Merrick, assuming you're still there? I was going to wait for that. ManyVids? Fansly? I'll trust the ones Merrick provides. I don't know what the fuck. AVN Stars, ManyVids.
Right, I mentioned North Korea, so I'm putting a North Korean song on and I'm pissing off. because I'm going to eat some spaghetti bolognese. I know it's really late, but I don't give a shit. Where are we? Right, so we're going to look at North Korea while we are in Korea. In fact, fuck it, hold on, man. This is a real socialist nation, that values women, values women, doesn't see them as meat bags that they just want to fuck, values them very highly indeed, as we should. We don't think women should be exploited and selling their bodies, piece of meat, and we don't believe that men should be engaging in that activity. We believe that women are flowers, motherfucker. I'll do. The vaush version of this song would be, women are whores, sell your body, you're just a piece of fucking meat. If you want to survive in a capitalist society, sell your fucking body to Sims. You are a fucking whore. It doesn't matter if that's all you're worth. While other people are doing productive things for the socialist nation, you're going to be selling your piece of ass. Fucking based. Fucking scumbag. Right, this is the country I want to create. North Korea. No fucking around, guys. This is the country I'm creating. North Korea. North Korea.